either you're rich or you're stupid.
A blind deaf person. Yeah,
and their wedding was like in a month or something like that. Yeah, it was a whole mess.
Welcome back to another episode of the Gimbal Guys podcast. We are your hosts, Nick Jones and Sam Nato. Today, we are discussing red flags. We're going to do potentially a two-parter. We'll see. We're going to do red flags for what? Both kind of like as vendors' point of view, it's like red flags to see on couples when we book with them and vice versa. So like how couples can perceive vendors as potential red flags, right?
Yeah. We're going to go into both camps, make sure everybody makes good decisions around their wedding day. Which one do you want to do first?
Let's do it from like our perspective first.
So red flags about clients?
Clients, yeah.
All right. These should be juicy. Let's see. So the top one, which I think this is like instant red flag, don't even respond to them. Well, not really. They want to pay right away before even learning anything else about the service. And I think this is an instant red flag because it's a scam. This only happened a couple times, once or twice to us. Usually what ends up happening is like maybe they'll submit a form. Usually their information is very vague. And then they'll say something like, oh yeah, like we want to send a check now. Can we do that? Or sort of thing. Can we pay that all up front? And before we've even like given them any information. And basically it's just a way to kind of like cash a fraudulent check or something.
Okay, yeah. So, because I think to some people that might sound like potentially a good thing. So like explaining how this is a red flag is important.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like if there's like a Venmo scam too. If you just get Venmo'd by somebody random, like a lot of money, and then they try to get it back from you, then it causes like a whole headache somehow. But it's kind of like that. I've seen that happen in the wedding industry before. And we've had like one or two where, alarm bells were ringing and I just kind of ignored those.
I mean, scam aside, it's also like, we wouldn't want to just hop into something if they're trying to pay us a ton of money before we, understand what we're getting into also.
Exactly. I think a lot of these red flags actually come down to some of the money stuff. So another one is they don't want to do their final payment until after the wedding.
Oh yeah, that's a big no-no.
We just won't shoot it. If that happens.
Yeah, this is not just us. This is like almost every vendor out there. Like, if it's not paid in full before the wedding day, don't expect me to be there.
Yeah, and I get it because it's like wedding stuff is expensive and it's big chunks of money, but a lot of times some like couples can go into like bad financial situations after the wedding, and then we can't get money if we weren't paid in full at that point. It's also just hard just in general to get in touch with them after the wedding because they're not thinking about it anymore.
Right.
So even if they were actually planning on paying you after the wedding, you're still chasing them around and stuff.
I think something that we have recently kind of switched, like we used to do like the final payment was due about a week out, and like that's fine. But the problem is every vendor is doing that as well. So like from their point of view, they have to put up so much money for all these vendors, like their final payment's like a week out. So we've switched it to be about a month out. So they don't have to pay every single vendor on the same day and just lose on like tens of thousands of dollars in this one day. They can kind of spread it out.
Every vendor kind of does it differently. Some of them are weeks, some of them are 2 weeks, some of them are a month. I think venues are like 60 days. They do it like way in advance because they really want to make sure they've got it locked in. And yeah, I mean, the analogy I've seen is like, if you go to Chipotle or something like that, you don't get your food until you pay, like sit down restaurants are a different story. You pay after you eat, but like pretty much any other business, I can't think of another business where you pay after you get maybe haircuts, I guess. You pay after you get the haircut.
Oh, that's so true. You could just get your haircut and run out the door.
Which is, I think hairstylists should at least have a deposit or something. Or you
Yeah,
pay,
but that would be weird. Like,
pay when you walk
pay
in.
for half your haircut now and half when it's done.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you always have that opportunity to be like, man, my haircut sucks now. Like, I'm not paying you, sort of thing.
I'm sure that happens.
Yeah.
I'm sure that happens a lot.
But for, the wedding side of things, I know somebody personally, another wedding vendor, who they didn't get their payment before the wedding day. He filmed the wedding and he is still yet to be paid. And it's been months. And he will.
I wouldn't have even showed up, but even if you do, like he did, do not deliver anything.
Yeah. If for some reason there's like extenuating circumstances and it's like the couple's like, can we pay you on the wedding day? It's like, if we have the check in our hand, then we'll continue with filming on the day. If we don't, then we're out of there. You know, it's just, there's that element of trust. And I get it too. There's vendors out there who take deposits and things like that. So you have to be wary of those. But it's like, if you built that trusting relationship with them, that shouldn't be an issue. So pay in full before the wedding day. And if somebody asks you to pay after, then it's a red flag.
Yeah.
Another kind of like pricing related thing is when the couple is trying to negotiate prices with the vendor. I would say that's a red flag for me, at least.
Yeah. I mean, we have prices. We have packages in place for a reason. Like this is what we're worth. This is what, we value ourselves as. And if they aren't comfortable paying the entire amount, then that's not going to work for us.
Yeah. I understand a little bit too if a couple is asking about like certain discounts that may be available to them, because I know some people do like military discounts and things like that if you're a first responder. So it doesn't, I guess it doesn't hurt to ask, but if you're, the one thing I basically will just be like, get out of here, is if they say like, oh, this other vendor is willing to do the same thing for X amount of dollars less than you. Can you match that? It's like, no, just go with them.
Yeah, screw that.
It's like, if that gets asked of us, get out of here. I feel like I may have seen like a reel or a TikTok or something where like former brides were encouraging other brides to negotiate prices. And I remember clicking into the comments to be like, you're crazy. It's like,
that is crazy.
You just don't do that. Somebody go to the coffee shop, go to Chipotle. It's $15.36. It's like, actually, it's whatever, $12. It's like, well, no, you don't get your food then. Pay the price.
And this has happened, I think, to us, but I forget off the top of my head. But like, what would the response be if, say we have like an 8-hour package of the day and they like everything that's included in this package except they only need like 6 hours and they are asking for a discount in that sense? Like, we still say no? Do we negotiate?
Well, I'm actually glad you brought that up, because some vendors have 6-hour packages. Us personally, we pretty much always need to be there at least 8 hours to get the coverage that we need to produce the end result.
Right.
And so our wording in our packages is actually up to 8 hours. So if you only need 6, sure, we can be there for 6. And if we get everything that we need in those 6 hours, then cool. But that's kind of just like that package is like the base. And 8 hours is pretty much the base timeline that we need to produce the wedding films of the caliber that we do. So, other vendors might be different. I know photographers have a lot of 6-hour packages, 5 hours, sometimes even 4 if they're doing like elopements and stuff like that. But just for us personally, we have that kind of like 8-hour minimum essentially. I think catering specifically does, I didn't know this until recently, but they do food minimums. So it's kind of like you could have a really small guest count. So again, it's kind of like you don't need that many hours. You don't need that many guests. But catering halls, they just essentially kind of have like a set amount of money that they want to make. And at some point they need to have those minimums, because if they cater for less guests, they end up losing money just based on expenses of food and staff and things like that. So that's probably why those minimums are in place. And for us, 8 hours is like kind of a similar thing. It's just what we need to
pretty much
do the job. If you're a couple, just Somebody says their price, it's pretty much their price. I guess don't be too discouraged on like seeing what discounts are available, but don't expect one. Definitely don't expect one, because I don't know any wedding vendors personally who have some form of discount. Yeah. Another pricing red flag is the first thing the couple asks you for is like, can you send pricing, and like no other information.
And this is probably the most common one, honestly, for us. Like,
we just know instantly, like, it's not gonna,
if their first words to us are, what's your pricing? Can you send us the pricing package? Then it's more likely than not, it's not going to work out.
Because the only thing they're looking for is a number, and they're looking for the cheapest option out there. And we're not the cheapest option out there. Definitely not.
No.
You need to connect with what we actually do.
But we're not the most expensive either.
Yeah. So if you're just we've talked about this before too, so many times, but if you're just basing your decision off of price, then you're making the wrong decision. You need to base it off of style or any other factors that vendor has. You got to make sure you connect with those things.
I mean, yeah, even if you are trying, like if budget is your number one priority, I get it, but you should still at least connect with the style.
You should be concerned with budget. If you weren't, then either you're rich or you're stupid.
Right.
And then just like allocate your budget accordingly to what's important for you for the wedding. If videography is not that important to you for the wedding, then by all means don't spend a lot of money and look for those cheaper options. But just know that with the cheaper option, you're going to get a worse product. Simple as that.
Yeah, exactly.
A little bit. Those are kind of like, I think a lot of red flags come from money related things.
Yeah.
Weddings are expensive. I get it. But another thing I see kind of as a red flag is when couples reach out, and this is usually after they've inquired and maybe we've had some back and forth, but if their communication is extremely slow or lacking, like they just don't answer you quickly enough. I get it. Usually, like, what I've found is couples will usually respond to us outside of business hours because they work their day jobs during business hours,
totally get
and they do their wedding planning at night. And sometimes it's not always the priority. But if it's a consistent thing where it's like weeks on end where they're just not responding, and it just trying to get any form of response out of the couple is just prying, then it's kind of a red flag.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, it's not like we expect them to answer us within an hour or two. Like, we get it. This is not a huge priority. You have a job, you have a life. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you need to work from 9 to 5, and then you want to spend your off work times doing other things. So I get it. We are not the priority, but you have to understand that we need to have a line of communication to do our job.
Exactly.
So you need to help us out a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Can't just be a one-way line of communication, because nothing gets done at that point.
Because that's something that we specifically emphasize, like our communication with our couples, to get to know them, to inevitably make our films better and like make the experience on your day a more pleasant one.
Yeah. Even outside of like wedding stuff that we do, like we're always over communicating things, because it's better to over communicate than to under communicate. You should like leave nothing to the imagination.
And I feel like that's like trying to think of it from an outside perspective. I don't think we ask for too much, but I do think that our views on it have been a little skewed due to the fact of like over the few years we've been doing this, we've grown to over communicate so much that over communication has become our new normal. But understanding that it's not the normal for 99% of people, I like can sometimes, can slip our minds.
Yeah. I like to keep it that way though, because I like having kind of like making sure all the plans are set in place, just making sure I know the drill, so that when I come on the wedding day, there's not really any surprises. Sometimes we still will even get surprises even after over communicating.
It happens.
Yeah. And kind of like another related communication red flag comes from the initial inquiry, when there's kind of like not really any background or detail given, or like they're very vague on what they want. So like some couples are just, they're very, I guess, private, or they just, I don't know, they don't have much that they want to say. But like one of the things we have on our website form is like, tell us about yourselves. And this is to make sure that, one, it's like a real person inquiring, And two, we kind of have some baseline of a story so that when we do schedule a call, we have some things to talk about, make sure we connect. There's a whole emotional connection that needs to kind of be had. And it's like, if you don't really give us much to work with, it's kind of a red flag, you know?
And I mean, arguably 80% of the people who fill out our form don't fill it out as much as we would like them to.
Oh yeah.
And part of me understands that, you know, like everyone's lazy. They don't want to spend time typing out their whole love story on this stupid little document. And even if they don't, it's okay as long as when we do end up getting on that first call, they then open up and tell us about it, at least in person.
Yeah.
Like if they don't want to say it by typing it all out, I get it. Would I prefer it? Yes, but I get that you don't have the time to do that. As long as they open up on our call, that's what matters.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that section is usually not filled out as much. But one thing we do have too is we have an option for their Instagram handle. That kind of works two ways. So if it's a quick thing to type. So it doesn't give them a lot of effort if they're willing to share it. Some of them, you know, hey, if you want to stay private, that's cool. Yeah. It helps us just make sure you're a real person and you're legit. One thing I saw recently from another wedding videographer actually is he asks what TV show they've been watching recently. Again, gauge person. It's a great question because it's like quick to type, gauge their personality, and make sure they're a real human. You know, robot isn't really going to like understand some of that nuance, I guess.
I've been watching The Rookie, and I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but I will. Pokemon.
I would put Family Guy for that, which is also kind of just like
No, Family Guy's fine. I like watch that every once in a while. That's like a mindless show that just works at any time.
It is. But yeah, they're very vague. It's usually a red flag. And again, related to that as well, related to the communication aspect, is if clients don't agree to any form of call.
I mean, yeah, if they aren't going to hop on a call with us, we will not work with you.
Exactly. We need to know you're a real person. And one of the things that actually came from, I was talking about earlier, where we had that like check scam thing come in. They were like, it was definitely like a real person scamming because they gave a reason that they were like blind and deaf or something like that and like couldn't do Zoom or phone calls. And I'm like, why the heck do you want a video if you can't see or hear? It's so true. So I was like, what I did too, because I'm like, I really don't believe this is a real person, but I don't want to just like be an asshole.
I don't remember this. Like
it was a while ago. So I sent a list of questions that we would ask them in a Zoom call and ask them to like go into detail, and they just didn't go into detail. They just, they're very like surface level answers and stuff like that. And I'm like, I could just tell this is not a real person or a real inquiry.
Hilarious. A blind deaf person.
And their wedding was like in a month or something like that. Yeah, it was a whole mess. But yeah, if they don't agree to any form of call, unless again, maybe they are actually blind and deaf and somehow want a video or whatever. But if they don't agree to a call, like, sorry, we just can't. I can't work with you.
At minimum, a phone call. Like if you don't want to use a webcam or like if you don't want to show your face like that,
I get that.
Suppose I understand that, but if you're not willing to hop on a phone call, then that's a problem.
If they refuse a Zoom call too, I'm kind of like alarms or triggered.
Like
senses are up.
We're gonna see your face on the Zoom call. We're gonna see you in person in real life. Yeah. Like, what's the difference?
Just give us some body language. Just telling somebody else recently, like, we just like to see you guys smiling back at whatever we're saying to make sure you actually like us. Because if you don't like us either, then it's not going to work. If we're overly communicating to you and you don't like it, doesn't work.
Right.
So get on it. If you're a couple, get on calls with your vendors. Even for your sake too, you should.
I mean, videographers are not the only ones that have Zoom calls. Like almost every other vendor probably does.
Yeah. Finding a lot do prefer phone, which is fine. But I think photo video should have the Zoom call.
It makes sense for the creative team to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. Another big no-no is clients wanting to revise contracts.
Yeah. Like
No.
There's no need to.
It's like, hey, we don't like, when you go on any online service or Apple or whatever, you have to agree to those terms and conditions. What happens if you don't agree to them? You can't use that thing. The contract is our terms and conditions. If you don't agree to it, sorry. The one thing that could get added to a contract though, that's like an exception, is if you need to like remain anonymous or something, and you don't like want the video of your wedding to be shared online or something.
Okay, yeah.
So if you need like privacy or something.
Yeah, I understand that.
That's like the only thing. Everything else is kind of like, no, that's how we do things.
And again, trying to think of it from the normal person side of things, most people are not very used to having to go through contracts, reading them, and like signing a bunch of contracts like this. So I understand a slight hesitation and like somewhat like negative attitude towards them. But at the end of the day, like you have to understand that you need these.
Yeah. And it goes two ways, because the contract obviously protects the business owner from things that could happen, but it does protect the couple too.
Yeah.
Like kind of like cancellation policies. There's some things that protect the couple. If like videographer has to cancel, there's clauses in there that will protect the couple. If those obligations can't be fulfilled. There's also kind of like, I think couples get hesitant too, because pretty much everybody requires the, like we were talking about earlier, everybody requires the payment in full before the wedding. And a lot of people, that first payment is like, I think across every wedding vendor, that first payment is not refundable. And people get scared about that because there are just not even in the wedding industry. Like I know a lot of construction contractors they'll pose as construction contractors, collect non-refundable deposits, and then ghost, like leave town. So I think people are scared of that.
Which again, I understand.
But then you could take legal action because you signed a, well, I guess if it's like a scam company, then their contract will protect them. But like with us, you don't have to worry about that because you're protected too.
You're blindly just giving these people a lot of money. So I get it without getting anything in return for another few months. So yeah, I get that that's scary.
Yeah. If you're worried about any like scary legal terminology, like just have a lawyer look over it for an hour or two.
Ask us questions too. Like if you have questions about the contract, we can answer them.
Yeah. And if you don't agree, that's fine. We're not the right fit. Easy.
Like I don't think it's happened yet, but like if a couple had questions about the contract and they wanted to like hop on a call with us to go over it, we would, and we can just put it in layman's terms for them to help them understand it more. Because like I said, they're not used to this type of language.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't try to change contracts. Big one. This is photographer, videographer specific.
These are more than I thought they were going to be.
Well, yeah, I do my research. I do my due diligence. When a client wants you to edit in a different style. No, period. Next one.
I mean, that should be like something you talk about pretty early on. Like, it's like, do you connect with the style?
Yeah.
Or if they ask you, like, can you do it this certain way? Yes or no. If it's a no, you move on. Because, like,
yeah,
unless your whole brand is about changing styles all the time, which I doubt anyone does that.
If you do that, then you're not good at business.
99% of people have a certain style that they do on repeat. Us included, we have a style, and if someone asks us to do it in a different way that is not the same way that we would normally do it, if it's drastically different style, then we just tell them like, no, we can't do that. This is how we do it.
Yeah, it's to create a sense of expectation of the quality of the product you're going to be getting in the end. Because if we were experimenting all the time, which there are things we experiment on as creative people, and people know that, but we're not changing our style every time. There's probably small little elements that we may, play around with, little creative things that we do, but our style, it will always remain consistent. Because you just have, with something creative, to build that layer of trust, you have to know what you're getting. So to ask them to do something that is not what they produce is kind of ridiculous. You go into a pizza place and you ask them to make you Chinese food. Not happening. You know?
And if they do it,
That's
it's
a good
going to be some
analogy.
really bad Chinese food.
That's a really good analogy. I like that. It's the same thing. But yeah, they just won't do that different style. And I mean, we really make sure of it now. I started asking couples recently, like I always ask them, do you connect with our style? What do you like about our style? And I even started asking people recently, like, what's your favorite film of ours on our website? Because then I can get a sense, even on a deeper level, of what they're actually looking for. Because they might point something out in that film specifically that they were like, oh yeah, this really resonated with me. And then we'll aim to do that on theirs as well. And they'll be happier at the end of the day.
Right. Because like, well, yes, we have an overall style. Each individual video is still going to have some different aspects. So yeah, if they gravitate towards one that, you know, we did a certain thing in it that we maybe didn't do in other ones, then we now know, okay, they really like that. Let's do it for them.
Yeah, exactly. Ooh, you're going to like this one. So when parents are overly involved with the booking process, or they're basically the parents are like the only source of contact
that we
I
talk
guess.
to.
Yeah, point of contact.
I hate that. Like,
Yeah. Well, I also just won't do it if I don't get to talk to the couple.
I mean, yeah, no, we
You know?
we need to have a connection with the actual couple. Like, I don't care if you're paying for it. I'm not working for the person who's paying. I'm working for the couple.
Yeah, I mean, parents have joined us on calls before.
And it's okay if they
That's
join.
totally fine. If
Like,
you
they
feel
can
more
totally
comfortable
hop
that
on.
way,
Yeah.
as long as we're talking to you and you are the client. We'll never take signatures on contracts from parents.
No.
They can provide the funding, but the client is the couple, not the parents.
Right.
Doesn't have to be who's paying. The client is the people whose wedding it is, whose film is being made about them.
Yep.
That's the client. So,
And we've heard stories of, you know, people, you know, the parents on the wedding day, like telling them, like, no, like, I paid for this. You have to film this. Like, I'm doing this. And I'm like, no, like,
heck nah.
we were working for the couple, like your kids. That's what we're here for. I don't care if you paid. I really don't.
And also, hot take, even if you need your parents to be there on the call, even if they are paying for the wedding, you're an adult. You can do things without your parents. Again, just make sure they can be on the call. Just make sure they're like in the background. Maybe they can chime in with a question or two, but they shouldn't be leading
They
the
cannot
call.
be the one that's primarily speaking.
Yeah. Yeah. Pull up your big boy pants and just be an adult. You don't need your parents to help you with everything. End of story. Another kind of thing that like sort of stems off of that is like if couples, so it ties into planners too a little bit. If you're like only communicating with the planner, which I mean we work with planners and we understand like if you're hiring somebody for like full planning services and they're like doing all of the things for you, they're like booking, they're curating the vibe of the event. If you hire somebody for full planning, it's like I get why you would want to be a little bit more hands off. But for us personally, we need some sort of relationship with the couple, even if it's just very surface level. And
that's
we're working
happened.
with a planner.
Like we've had, you know, planners who are, you know, fully planning these people's weddings. And like you said, if they hired them to do a full planning thing, they obviously want to be hands off. Otherwise they wouldn't have done that. But
as long as we can like see your face.
Yeah, we
and
still
talk
have our
to you.
process, and in our process we need to talk to you as the couple. So we will still do our Zoom calls and we'll talk to the couple, but the planner will still be there on the call. And the planner might do most of the talking, which in those cases I believe is acceptable as long as we can still have some form of dialogue with the couple themselves.
I think the initial call is the most important part. I feel like what's happened to us in the past is like we'll usually do the initial call with the couple and nobody else. And then when we're kind of like on those check-in or like final planning calls, it's usually just the planner going through logistics because the planner knows the most about the logistics.
Right.
As long as we have that like baseline emotional connection, even if it's surface level with the couple themselves, then that's all right. Like the couple could come on, we could talk to them for 5 minutes and then it could be like, all right, planner's going to talk to you about the timeline now.
And
so
that's fine.
we gotta go. Sure, we can do that as long as we say something to you, because we will be working with you on the day of, and we need that some sort of connection. But that's all I got for red flags about clients.
All right, yeah. I think we'll call it for this one then.
Any other extraneous ones you may have thought of in the meantime?
Not off the top of my head, no.
I would like to know if anybody else has any other red flags that they've seen in clients, or maybe things that
there's some crazy ones that
maybe
we
they've
just wouldn't
seen
think
in
of.
the booking process that turned into a red flag later on. It's like, oh, I should have seen that coming. I guess just let us know in the comments, send us a message, all that good stuff. Yeah, that wraps this one up. Leave us a 5-star review on Spotify, subscribe and like on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram at SeaMount Weddings. And if you're looking to plan a wedding yourself and you're looking for videography, it's SeaMountWeddings.com, and we'd love to chat more. That wraps it up. See you later.
Okay, bye.